Hi guys, Kara from Health, Home, and Happiness here. Today we're going to talk about how to choose your least restrictive diet, and I'm doing this on webcam because it's easiest for me to share my screen with you via this method. I try to use a better camera for most of my videos so that it's like a little bit better picture quality, but this is the easiest way for me to get this information for you kind of like as we talk. So first of all, choosing your least restrictive diet. This is where a lot of us do restrictive diets because our symptoms are bad and that's restricting our life. And so this is like kind of a balance, and it's probably going to be a moving target that those of us with chronic health problems are going to have to deal with our entire life. So if you have high symptoms that impact your life a lot, then you're probably going to have a higher tolerance for how much you're willing to restrict your diet. But if you just have little symptoms, then you don't need to go for those big, intense restrictive diets. So this is going to be a balance that changes based on your life situation and everything like that. So today I'm going to share my screen and we're just going to talk about some pretty basic, most of you know, and I'll go into another video, how diseases begin in the gut and how important gut healing is. I'm a gut health blogger to manage chronic symptoms. And I also do keto to manage mental health. And so we're just going to kind of go through a bunch of the diets, browser tab. And I am going to share with you, I don't need that one. This is a page on my blog. I'll link to it down below. And so I'm going to talk about each of these and who they might be less restrictive for and who's more restrictive for. I'm literally sitting at my kitchen table and drinking coffee right now. And so I kind of feel like this is like a mom to mom talk. I'm definitely not qualified to give medical advice. So the first one, how do you decide which healing diet is right for you? It's going to always be so dependent on where you're at. And your motivations are usually going to be from chronic symptoms where like maybe they can be controlled with medications, but the side effects are too much, or they're just like autism it was not controllable with medications, which is what eventually drove me into healing diets. So I hope that all of you know that you don't have to do like GAPS intro and you don't have to do like full keto to get healing benefits. So the first one we're going to talk about is the gut and psychology syndrome diet, or the specific carbohydrate diet. GAPS is a version of the specific carbohydrate diet. It kind of combines nourishing traditions with the ferments and a lot of the chicken stock with the GAPS diet, or with the specific carbohydrate diet that starves out the pathogenic bacteria down low in your gut. There's full GAPS and there's intro GAPS. Full GAPS is probably going to be one of, like, it's like on a 1 to 10 scale, I would say it's a 6 for how restrictive it is for you. A way that you can make it less restrictive is include lots of cooked fruits. So a lot of people will have a hard time digesting all of the vegetables and fruits. Like if you have a damaged gut, that's not uncommon. When we did GAPS, we did a lot of baked apples. We did a lot of applesauce in the crock pot. We did a lot of like squash, like mashed squash, and then putting loads of fats in there. That can help make that less restrictive for you, so that it doesn't feel like you're just eating the whole time. People disagree with me. Like I know there's raw vegans and that works for them. For me, cooking the fruit or juicing the fruit really helps a lot. I just feel like I get a lot more out of it and I don't have to eat as much, because that's kind of one of the biggest problems with GAPS and SCD is that your body's starving for that nutrition. So once you get on it, you can't go off of it because then you have food reactions, but you also feel like you're having a hard time getting full. And so both juicing and cooking, like well cooked, even after intro when you're allowed to have raw, well cooked is generally less restrictive. And then in GAPS, we are allowed to have navy beans. And I found that my kids were able to do black beans as well. And so the beans can really keep this from being as restrictive, and that can really help your grocery budget as well. I have a refried bean recipe on my site. I'm not going to show you right now, but I do have a refried bean recipe. We buy like a huge bag of pinto beans. My kids just do really well with beans. And I cook beans in the Instant Pot at least once a week. And so that can free up your grocery money, and that can make it so that you're kind of full. Like beans are pretty filling for those of you who digest them. And of course, it's always going to be dependent on what you do well on. So the reason that the GAPS and specific carbohydrate diet are too restrictive is that you have to watch like even molecules of sugar. You can't have as much as a grain of rice. And so it's easier to find stuff that you can eat out now, but it can feel restrictive for eating at other people's houses. Well, I guess I'll talk about the GAPS intro right now. And GAPS intro is like on a 1 to 10 scale of how restrictive it is. GAPS intro is like a 10. It's just incredibly restrictive. But the way that it's not restrictive is within 30 days, 6 weeks, I was able to heal my dairy allergy in 6 weeks. And so that got rid of a whole like having to accommodate myself of avoiding dairy my whole life. Within 6 weeks, I was able to knock that out. That's not everyone's going to have that much success, but it is something that can pull you out of kind of an emergency situation. And that's where, but if you don't need to be on GAPS intro, if you can manage your symptoms just fine and you don't mind avoiding allergens, then like full GAPS is a much less restrictive version of GAPS. So next we have autoimmune paleo. Autoimmune paleo is similar to GAPS. You are allowed more starches. So you can have, I think it's like tapioca, and you can have sweet potato. There's an introduction phase that's more strict. This might be good for you if you feel like you need more starches than GAPS had. And the starches do feed that prebiotic, which we'll talk about down in the SIBO section in a second. So the autoimmune paleo might work for you if you want to eat like a paleo diet and you have autoimmune symptoms like joint pain, or you've been diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. It's like more strict but less strict. So you have to avoid certain vegetables, but you don't have to avoid all starches like you do with GAPS and SCD. So this is something that just kind of depending on how you feel avoiding starches. I'm like perfectly happy on low carb. I don't feel the need for sugar or starches, but other people really feel a lot better when they are eating those starches. Even if you've previously done really well on low carb in the past and you're suddenly feeling sluggish, adding in like that tapioca, I think tapioca is allowed on here. I'm not super awesome at AIP. This is Wall's protocol. I think she want 9 cups of veggies a day. That can be a struggle. Cooking them down helps a lot. I mean, veggies are good and it gives you a lot of variety. Meal prepping can definitely help getting those 9 cups of veggies in a day. And really, so if autoimmune is your main symptom, this is something that you can use arrowroot flour as well. If autoimmune is your main symptom, this probably, and it's not solved just by eliminating grains. A lot of people can solve their autoimmune problems just by eliminating like gluten and grains and going on a loose paleo diet. But if that didn't work, AIP might be your best bet. And you might not need to do something as strict as GAPS. Next one we're going to talk about is Whole30. Whole30 is an allergy elimination diet, and it also eliminates dairy. This could be your least restrictive diet if you just need to change your habits. If you know that you have the habit of putting like too much sweetener in your coffee and going and getting donuts when your office has them, you might just need that reset if you have bad habits and that's what's causing like a little bit of weight gain or a little bit less energy, or you just know you could be doing better. This is a great temporary diet. And it is really strict, but it's only for 30 days. And the goal isn't necessarily to solve a health problem as much as it is to reset your habits. And she is no alcohol for those 30 days too, which I think no alcohol and no dairy. And those ones are things that people don't like to do, but I think that a lot of us can really benefit from that. So next up is 21-day sugar detox. I like that it's just 3 weeks. Um, there's 3 different levels that you can have, and this is just really if you are having a hard time like with your sugar and your carbs, but you want to do keto, this might be a good transition. Or again, just like Whole30, if you just need a reset and you've got 3 weeks, like a lot of people do this in January or again like spring break. 21-day sugar detox is a great reset. And yeah, there's 3 different levels. And it's great if you wanna grab, like, your mom's group or something like that and just all join together and do this together. Paleo is going to be probably most people's least restrictive diet, and what I like about this is that you can do the 80-20 principle with it. Is it does remove all of the stuff that just gives us chronic inflammation, but if we go out over to someone's house, like, you can just opt not to eat the bread and eat whatever they serve, but you don't have to like go in with a microscope and look at all of their recipes and look at all the ingredients in their fridge because that can be just feel really intrusive socially. So paleo is kind of like choose what you want. You can do paleo is dairy free. I think these are both paleo. This is primal is with dairy. I recommend that most people at least take a 30-day break from dairy and then try introducing it. I do have a symptom checker that I'll link to down below so that you can kind of track what's going on when you reintroduce foods. And it's just a quick little chart is what I use for my own daughter when we were doing autism recovery. So paleo is grain-free, sugar-free, starch-free. Again, to make this less restrictive and so you don't feel like you're eating all the time, cooked fruit can really help you get those calories in. If you're having a hard time meeting calorie needs, when I was breastfeeding, my babies just, especially my first two, they just breastfed. That's how they got all of their nutrition. They didn't eat solids really enough to like sustain them on anything until after they were a year. And they were both like big nursers. And so I had a hard time keeping the weight on when I was and not feeling starving all the time when I was breastfeeding. And so the cooked veggies with lots of fats, and then the cooked apples, like applesauce, even add in some butter into your applesauce or ghee. Ghee is really easy to make if that helps you not have to spend a ton of money on ghee. Um, I'll have to put that up. I do have a video on that that's in my freezer cooking class. And then that's another thing, you go up on the top of my site, having meals prepped, so you're not having to prep all the time helps a lot. So that's my freezer cooking class. Um, it's I need to update some of this stuff. We have, I think, 12 cooking units right now. Um, but it just helps you to be able to pack all of your freezer full of food that is allergen friendly, easy to digest. And because we're freezing it, it is all cooked. And like I said, I am kind of biased. I feel like cooked food is a lot easier for me to digest. And so I think that might be the case with a lot of you as well. We just did paleo primal. So keto. Um, Keto is probably going to be your least restrictive diet if like the biggest restriction in your life is either mental health issues or it's carrying extra weight or PCOS. Those three things, probably the benefits of being on keto are going to outweigh that you have to count your carbs, which is annoying. And that's like, I don't like counting either. And also it's going to outweigh that like you can't have carbs, like you can't have in season peaches, which is just like stupid. um and it's not that you can't, like you can try them and see if your symptoms come back or not. It's not, I don't know, I guess there's no judgment associated with this. It's just you need to decide at every 3 months. I kind of check in with myself and say, is it better for me, like, am I gonna miss peaches that much, or should I just eat them and, like, deal with the mental health symptoms that come back for me? And so this is something that's gonna be the same for you, like, if you're doing this for weight loss and you've lost, like, 50 pounds and then summer hits and you're, like, in the middle of you have an orchard in your backyard and you really wanna eat those peaches, maybe just go off and go to primal or paleo for a couple months, and then in the fall when the produce is like not as exciting anymore, go back to keto. And so that's really what we're looking at when we're doing least restrictive diet. um, so keto is like, I would say the reason that it's less, another reason it's less restrictive, at least for me, is that it controls my carb cravings. Like I really don't care, like people can bring a box of donuts into my house and I just don't care, or they can order pizza and eat it and it doesn't bother me because it does control my carb cravings. Um, and it suppresses appetite a little bit as well. Carnivore diet, this is a pretty restrictive one. I'd put this up at like a 10 on the restrictive scale. So the carnivore diet is that might be your least restrictive diet. And it's usually, some people will do it for years at a time. It's usually temporary though. Okay, so the carnivore diet is a very restrictive diet. I would say it's a 10. The reason that people find, like, you'll find like gung ho enthusiasts for the carnivore diet, it's probably because they had food allergies they weren't addressing. And so you get rid of those food allergies and you get rid of the associated brain fog, you get rid of um, like chronic sinus infections, hives, all that kind of stuff, or just low energy. Carnivore diet's probably like almost always going to put you in ketosis. So you get the benefits of being in fat burning mode over sugar burning mode, which we kind of touched on with the keto diet. Um, this is this is kind of a last resort. And if you are doing this, I would go from carnivore diet and then try the GAPS introduction diet. I'm gonna take I have the stages written out on my blog somewhere too. I can find and link, but this is the ebook that I have that goes with it. Um, I would not stay on the carnivore diet personally. I don't think that that's awesome for years at a time. There's lots of people that would disagree with me, but it's a good reset. And then just like that, and this is like also a 10 out of 10 on the difficulty, like restriction scale, but it's also incredibly temporary. So a lot of people now, and this has been common in a lot of cultures kind of forever, they are doing fasting and water fasting or like coffee fasting. And this is something that I use. If you fast for 24 hours, you can get into ketosis really fast. It's kind of thought that anything that fasting over 12 hours at a time. So even if you just every day fast from 6 in the evening all the way through to 11 the next morning, which is usually what I do. Um, if you do all of that fasting, then your body is kind of going into autophagy mode, which means that it's instead of slowly detoxifying all the cells that are like obviously our cells don't last forever. We're like constantly rebuilding them. And so the theory behind fasting is that after 12 hours, your body goes into autophagy mode and it's like detoxifying on rapid speed. I'm not even sure why. I think it's because it's not busy digesting your food. Like your food should have been almost all digested from your digestive system after 12 hours. And so then your body switches over into cleaning out the cells that are bad, replacing them, repairing, detoxification. Fasting, water fasting makes me tired. It makes me a little bit grumpy. Like you don't eat. I think it's less than 50 calories a day. So like I'll have black coffee, which has like a couple calories in each cup. Um, so I can only do this if I have like 3 days. Like it's not like I'm in bed, but I'm tired and I'm not energetic and I'm probably not in the best place to parent my children. So I just do this like if the kids are in school and I don't have a lot going on and I'm not stressed out about anything else, is I'll do like a 48 to 72 hour fast. A lot of people do 5 day fasts. I haven't gotten up to that much. Um, just because it seems like stuff comes up for me that's stressful and I can't fast anymore without, taking, I don't want to take out my stress because I'm not eating on the people around me. So I choose to eat. So this is fasting can be, so that is least restrictive because it is so temporary. If you've got like, there's a fasting video, I think it's on Netflix or maybe it's on Amazon Prime. I think it's free or it's like $1.99 or something. Um, but it's like a fasting center where people will go there. They talk about this one guy and he has some job, it's probably sales, where he's drinking with clients a lot and it's just like killing his liver. So he goes once a year and does like a 3 to 5 day fast at the center where they focus on detoxification and his liver enzymes or whatever return to normal. You'll have to watch the documentary, which I did link to up here. It's The Science of Fasting. This is the complete guide of fasting. And I listened to this on audiobook. It's really a long book. This is actually what I do when I fast is I just listen to this book and walk around my neighborhood a lot. Eat, stop, eat. This is intermittent fasting, how I talked about that over 12 hours, your body switches over into autophagy mode. So eat, stop, eat is like a 12 to 48-hour fast kind of whenever. And that's intermittent fasting is when it's called extended fasting, I think, if it's over 24 hours, and intermittent fasting if you're eating under 24 hours. In general, it's not like a hard and fast rule. So that's it. That's kind of the least restrictive diets. I'm hoping that you can find one that if you're just on a super restricted diet because you know it works and you don't want your symptoms to come back, maybe you got some ideas of how you can sort of like merge together some or add in something from another diet to make what you are on the least restrictive for you. Or if you're on like a gluten-free diet, but your symptoms are still like you'd rate your symptoms at like an 8 or a 9 for how much they're impacting your life, maybe you just got the encouragement that it is less restrictive for you to just deal with not having or not being able to eat all that different kind of food and go on that specific diet for hopefully a temporary period of time. Thanks for joining me. And I'm going to be unpacking in more detail each of the diets I just talked about in this series. So I look forward to seeing you there. You can subscribe over there, and other videos that are related will be here. Thanks so much.